What up, y'all? Back again. Here's some amazing structures that we built before we had our current technology. Amazing. And everything is equal and mirrors from one side to the other on the architectural pieces when you're talking about the pillars or any kind of carving, or if there's multiples or multiples, they all somehow were carved out exactly the same without any kind of machinery, just a chisel and a hammer. And these are a lot of structures that I'm showing you here today that we just can't replicate today in this modern day and age with all of our technology and engineering, all of our infrastructure, and all of our skilled labor. We can't even come close to it. It's a lot of times in rural parts of the world as well, where you'd have to travel to get to some of these places. Might be a monstrosity structure in the middle of a mountaintop or in the middle of a desert. And it's got to get you thinking, and why would they build structures out in the middle of nowhere? It's, you got to know that there was a city there at one time, or there was something going on where it made some kind of sense, because everything is supposed to be somewhat logical. People don't decide to build buildings in the middle of nowhere, or at least even if you get back to the original photos, when they were founded, the founders, because that's all they did is they found them. When you go back to the film in 1800s and the photos, you're going to find that may have very well been the case. It might have been a standalone at the time. And it was sunk in the mud with no infrastructure even leading up to it, which is something that you never do. You just don't build like that. Look at these structures. I mean, they're not only amazing, but they were not only also sunk in the mud, but anything that they did to them was excellent. It was superb, and it didn't have any flaws. When we build, we create flaws. We just so happen to not be articulate enough to make things outlast, and we always mess up, and you'll see it in our construction if you look close enough. Or they say the people that built it are going to be a little annoyed by it because they know where all the mess ups are, but we typically won't be able to find them because we see the finished product and we don't know what to look for. But I'm telling you, these structures they're ancient. They're from the ancient of days, and they still are immaculate. I mean, they may be weathered, but if these are from the kingdom or the millennium spoken of in the word, and these are leftover structures because we are beyond that point, they would be weathered ever since that ended and the mud flood occurred into the short season. And that's my point. But you're talking about they were pristine until that time occurred, because nothing ages when it's with the king. It doesn't get weathered, in my humble opinion. And these were all almost like pieces of equipment. Maybe they had moving parts to them, or they energized or activated like computer chips that were all part of a mainframe that maybe got disconnected during the mud flood or during an atmospheric change at the same time when that kingdom reign ended. And the king who caused it to be atmospherically different when he left, so did that atmosphere, right? But you still see remnants of the Antiquitech that was dismantled so that we would not notice or search these types of things out. But there's enough evidence for the people who are vigilant that are true investigators of history, not just listening to the jargon of the everyday individual on TV or on the news or in the media or in some of these theology or philosophy books. To just take their word for it and not believe that there's an alternate agenda. You know, a lot of times you hear things that are 80% true and 20% false or 50-50. You don't know because you weren't the authors of it, right? So we have to reverse engineer the literature because there's some truth in it and there's some untruth in it, generally speaking, because they have to tell the truth. Thank you for watching.